That monster machine you created, you're in love with her. She's all you ever think about. That's why your socks never match.
Welcome back to the channel. This is Gareth and it's Book Songs and Other Magic, and this is part 25 of my deep dive into the Twilight Zone. And that's looking at all 156 episodes of the original black and white series that started in 1959. And I'm going through all of the episodes. And I've actually decided to change the format a little bit for the last run of 18 episodes, the last 18 episodes. So what I've decided to do, because of the nature of the episodes, there's only a couple of really good ones, and because I think it just works better, I'm not going to do 3 videos talking about 6 episodes each. I'm going to do 2 videos talking about 9 episodes each. So I'm going to do 9 episodes in each of these last 2 videos, but I'm not going to do the opening narration like I've been doing. So hopefully that's not going to harm the video too much. I've enjoyed doing the opening narrations as part of the format of the videos, but I think they'll be a lot longer if I do the opening narrations, and I'll just go through 9 episodes in this video, and then the last 9 episodes of the entire series in part 25, and then I would have gone through everything, and I can talk about the sort of the better ones, and, you know, just talk about the series as a whole. So this is part 24, and it starts with an episode called Night Call. And Night Call is a really interesting episode that is written by Richard Matheson from a short story that he wrote called Long Distance Call. But he had to change the name of the episode because there was already a Twilight Zone episode called Long Distance Call. So that's why the episode's called Night Call. But it's got a really, really strong performance by Gladys Cooper, who plays this old woman who is mostly in bed in the episode. There's a sense that, I mean, she's in a wheelchair when she's out and about, so I think she's kind of bedbound in a lot of ways, and she's got this helper who's a big part of the episode. She has a lot of dialogue, and basically she gets these weird phone calls, and they're not just at night, they're just all day. She gets these phone calls, and for a while it's just static, and then it's like the sound of the other end's kind of receiver, and like just like a funny crackling noise, and then you start getting a male voice that's really freaking her out. And the phone company keeps looking into it, and they keep telling her that you know, it's nothing to worry about. And then when they do actually finally investigate it properly, they say that the phone line's cut, and basically it couldn't be an actual phone call, that she must be making up. But she's obviously convinced that she's getting these phone calls, and then when she does like look into it a bit more, because the phone company tells her the phone line is cut at the cemetery, so the line is physically cut at the cemetery, and she goes down there, and the phone line is actually is broken away, and is actually going into the grave of someone that she knew. So there's more to it, so I haven't spoiled everything, but it's a really good episode, and quite a chilling episode, very atmospheric episode. And Richard Matheson, in an interview on the Blu-ray set, actually says that he changed the ending himself because he wanted to put a little extra spice into the ending, which does add quite an interesting, unexpected element to it as well for the episode. So that was Night Call. The next one is called To Agnes with Love, and it's written by Bernard Schoenfeld, and the main character is played by Wally Cox, and it's a really interesting character that it's like almost like a Woody Allen character, or like a really timid scientific guy who's intimidated by women, very socially awkward, that kind of character. And he's trying to get somewhere with someone at work called Millie, and he's working on this Venus project, they keep calling it, and he's got this supercomputer he's working with to try and crunch these numbers so they can continue with the Venus project. So he's clearly a physicist, and he's really interested in Einstein and stuff like that, and he's trying to kind of show off his knowledge of Einstein to Millie. But she wants a regular guy who wants to dance with her and, you know, sort of flirt with her, dine with her, and all that kind of stuff, you know. So normal stuff. And he's very much more of a socially awkward scientific type. So that's kind of the setup. But amongst that, he's using a supercomputer called Agnes. And Agnes is giving him relationship advice, and then gets to the point where it's revealed that the reason why the advice is not going very well is because Agnes is actually in love with the character that Wally Cox plays, called Jim. It's a really, really good episode. And there's a nice sort of top and tail as well that is a little bit like Nick of Time. I don't know if you remember me talking about Nick of Time, where it shows that it's a continuing story with different characters. So that's a really nice element as well. So to Agnes with Love is actually a really good episode. So these first two are really good. And then we've got another Richard Matheson story called Spur of the Moment. And Spur of the Moment is a really interesting episode where it's about a woman who basically makes the wrong decision in a relationship, but that decision is also influenced slightly by a dominating father. And there's a really good scene, really well written scene, which is a confrontation between the father and this boyfriend that wants to be with this woman, and the actual expected fiance that's the other part of this love triangle. And they have this big confrontation in the house of the fiance, and that's really, really good scene. But basically, this woman is being haunted by her older self. It's done really well. It's quite an eerie episode. It's quite dramatic, and the acting's really good. And again, the script is really good. You always get this with the Twilight Zone. You always get a very sharp script, and Spur of the Moment is a good episode. I would say in all this batch, there's nothing bad. You know, they're either really good or they're good. So Spur of the Moment is definitely one of those ones that's really good. And there's a very clever time switch in this episode where you're not sure what's happening straight away, and basically it kind of blends the two scenes together through the episode, which is quite clever. So that's a good bit of narrative storytelling that is unusual. Okay, so the next one is very, very different, and that's the Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. And this is a really special one because it wasn't filmed by the Twilight Zone guys. Basically, for budget reasons and because they thought it was an artistically interesting thing to do, they bought a film that was already made and slapped a Rod Serling introduction in the beginning and put all the trappings of the Twilight Zone around it. But it was a film that had already been made and already won an award at the Cannes Film Festival. And later on won an Oscar as well for short film. So it won a short film award at the Cannes Film Festival and then a short film award at the Oscars. So this was a very poetic, powerful, interesting, unpredictable and eerie and romantic short film about a man who is about to be hung, and he basically manages to escape, and he's trying to get to his wife. And I won't tell you what happens in case you see the episode, because it would be a massive spoiler if I tell you more than that. But it was originally written and directed by Robert Enrico, who clearly is not part of the Twilight Zone team. They just bought the film, put it on as Twilight Zone just to kind of save money, and because they thought they were really impressed with the film. And Rod Serling, I saw an interview with Rod Serling when he talks about how much he loved the film, and he's really proud to put the Twilight Zone name on it. So yeah, it's just a really interesting moment where it wasn't even done by the Twilight Zone. And apparently, after a few different syndications, they dropped that one out of this syndicated presentations of the Twilight Zone on TV as well. I guess because they felt like it wasn't proper Twilight Zone, but it definitely fits. But it's mostly silent, which is maybe why it worked so well as a French film going on to an American TV show. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's a really, really good episode. Okay, so the next one is called Queen of the Nile, and that was credited to Charles Beaumont, although at this point in Charles Beaumont's life, he wasn't really that involved, and Jerry Soule is really the person that wrote it. But Charles Beaumont did have a part to play in the writing of it, and I think this is a really, really good episode. It's one of the better ones out of this batch, and Anne Blythe plays an eternally young movie star who is basically entertaining this reporter that's trying to get to know her and interviewing her, and actually just keeps asking about her age because something doesn't quite add up. And Anne Blythe's performance is utterly convincing. It's really authentic. Clearly, they found an extremely beautiful actress who could convince the audience of this sort of eternal life thing. And yeah, you're not really sure where it's going until about halfway through, and then once you realise that he's kind of trapped himself, and you kind of guess who the mother figure is, you start putting things together. It still works because it doesn't have to be about the twist, although there is a twist, but it just works anyway. So it's a really strong episode, I think, and yeah, I won't tell you too much except for the fact that the reporter has put himself in quite a difficult position without realizing it, and the sinister element is really underplayed, which I think works really well. So Queen of the Nile is a really good one, I think, and credited to Charles Beaumont. The next one is What's in the Box, and What's in the Box is written by Martin Goldsmith, and actually stars Sterling Holloway. So that was a nice little thing, hearing his voice. So you guys will be familiar with Sterling Holloway's voice probably more than his acting. He was a very busy actor in those days, but once he started working with Disney, then you'll definitely know him at least as the voice of Winnie the Pooh. But he did quite a lot of voices for Disney. So his voice is very familiar. But that was really cool, seeing Sterling Holloway on there. He's in the episode right at the beginning and right at the end, because basically he fixes the TV for this old man, which is the main part of the plot, this TV. And basically the TV, now it's fixed, is showing this old man and eventually his wife his extramarital activities, and it all creeps him out, disturbs him, he freaks out, it all gets really dramatic. And I tell you what's weird about this episode is it starts off quite light, and I think the intention is for it to stay light, but in this day and age, in 2024, scenes where you've got a couple physically fighting each other and throwing things at each other, and actually has a man punching a woman in it, that does not maintain a light tone when you're watching it. You're like, oh my god. It's ultimately, I mean, both of them are at each other, so it's not a woman being beaten up in that sense. It's definitely both of them at each other, but it's very jarring and quite disturbing to watch. I can't personally watch domestic violence. So I've got it's too much of a sensitive issue for me because of my childhood of what happened with my parents. But even though that's the case, the way this is done, it didn't upset me or make me turn it off or whatever, and it didn't feel like the sort of stuff I can't handle very well. So I wouldn't want to give you the impression that it was like this sort of horribly violent thing, but it was still strange. That I think it's telling basically that in the early 60s, it wouldn't have been as triggering or as upsetting or jarring as it would be now. So that's a little bit of a strange element to the episode, but it's an interesting episode, and I'd say it's probably the weakest out of this lot, possibly because of that element to it. It's a little bit like, this is horrid, but it's trying to maintain this comedic tone as well. And basically he gets, because of the nature of the Twilight Zone, he gets punished for what he does, which, you know, there's always a moral behind the Twilight Zone episodes. So the next one, sorry, it's not the last one yet. The next one is one of my all-time favorite episodes. Out of the whole batch, this just towers above the others, and it does tower above most of the episodes. It's such a brilliant episode, and it's called The Masks. It's written by Rod Serling. It's a really good example of what Rod Serling does. So many episodes in the Twilight Zone. I can definitely vouch for this even more now I've seen all of the episodes. Rod Serling likes to create these nasty characters, or have a central character that's either punishing the nasty characters, or there'll be someone else that will influence and be a catalyst for the punishment of this nasty character. And in this one, this is about the reading of a will, or at least the anticipation that the family are going to get this old man's money once he dies, and he's expecting to die any minute. But it's set in the Mardi Gras, and he's created these masks for his family. And I won't spoil it by saying what happens, but it's so brilliant. And again, you get these lines of dialogue where this old man is laying out very directly what nasty characters the rest of his family are. Again, really sharp script, very biting and gripping and powerful, just like you'd expect from some of the best episodes of the Twilight Zone. So yeah, The Masks is absolutely fantastic. And the masks themselves are by William Tuttle, who has done loads of brilliant work for the Twilight Zone, but this is probably one of the most famous things he did. This episode and The Eye of the Beholder may be the Gremlin on the Plane. Three things that William Tuttle was really famous for. But the masks themselves are quite famous, I think. They're fantastic. Okay, the next one is written by Rod Serling again, and it's another example where he's making this really big point about human nature and about hatred, about prejudice, about the darkness in our towns, and making a big point about when a whole area is guilty for this kind of collective hatred. The episode's called I Am the Night, Colour Me Black. And basically through the episode, it's a really obvious metaphor, but through the episode, a darkness descends upon this town and gets darker and darker and darker, while they absolutely remain steeped in their hatred and their attitude to this guy who seems to be innocent, but is going to be killed for this crime that he's supposed to have committed. So it's a really powerful episode. Some people might not like the obvious direct metaphor that just goes from the beginning to the end in one kind of, like, I don't know how to say it, in a way that's not particularly dynamic. There's no dynamics in this episode, and I think you can fault it for that. You know, that you've got this dialogue that is absolutely putting context to the darkness, but in the episode it just gets darker. So I thought it was a good episode, but I think I would absolutely get it why someone else would say it's too simple. There's not a lot going for it, but I think it's well written, so it works. Okay, so the last one is called Sounds and Silences. It's another Rod Serling episode, but this one's actually directed by Richard Donner, who goes on to do Superman and a bunch of other stuff. He has already directed other episodes, but he's directed this one. I really, really like this one. I thought it was really good. You could kind of see where it's going, but there's a little bit of an unpredictable element to it as well. But it's about this really obnoxious character. There's just a phenomenal performance by John MacGyver. Absolutely phenomenal performance. I don't know if I've said, actually, it's called Sounds and Silences. Sorry. Sounds and Silences is the title of the episode. And he's got this amazing performance at the centre of it with this man who just sort of shouts at everybody, is constantly wanting loud noise. He plays records of battles really loud in his office. And the people that work under him absolutely hate him, and they wish that he didn't have these weird habits. And his wife is fed up with it, and she's got some fantastic lines. The way he speaks to her is just bizarre and hilarious and absolutely true to the character. You know, anyone that says you can't put a lot of depth in a short story, you got his character down after 5 minutes, you know, with this story. So yeah, it's a really strong episode. I won't tell you how it ends, but it's all about sound. The sound design is really interesting as well in the episode. But all the performances are really good. But John MacGyver's central performance is phenomenal, and he's absolutely obnoxious in the worst kind of way. So again, that is another thing that crops up a lot in the Twilight Zone. So that's a really good one as well. So a really good batch of episodes, and The Masks is the standout one, but Queen of the Nile I think is really good as well. And there's lots of really good ones here. So this is part 24. The next one is the very last one, where I'm going to cover the last 9 episodes of the first run of 5 seasons, 156 episodes. I hope you've enjoyed the run. We've got one more left, so I don't want to sound like I'm ending the whole thing. But please comment below if you've seen these episodes or if they sound interesting. And if you haven't seen the other episodes, please check out the other parts. Check out the other videos that I've done. And thanks for watching. Stay curious, everybody.
Paint me a picture of what it's like to be you.